Hello again, thank you for joining me for another video. So this is going to be a bit of a rant, and I apologize in advance for this, but I think it's something that a lot of us feel, and I'm just going to try to express it so that those emotions can get brought to light, and maybe through that act of bringing this to light, at least for me and anyone who's listening to this, we can get some closure on it and some more insight into where it's coming from. So the thing that I'm thinking about and really feeling at large lately is a sense of nobody loves me. And it's not just like emanating from my own self, it's permeated the air, the culture, this sense of rejection and a deep, so it's like well beyond loneliness, it's well beyond separation, it is into the realms of just complete absence of love. And I think very many people are walking around right now with this sense of just complete emptiness and lack of connection to anything that matters. So they just feel completely unloved. It is a feeling of being unloved, lack of love. And I know we spend a lot of time talking about loving each other, and we spend a lot of time talking about kindness and attempt to, point the finger and paint a picture of where the bad guys are and who's causing all of these symptoms that we see in our society. But the bottom line is just this complete lack of love. And love doesn't come back because we say, I love you. We don't like suddenly become loving creatures because the words come out of our mouth. Love is a state of being, and the state of being infuses everything that you are interacting with in your life. And so this extreme sense of competition with each other and the way that we point out each other's flaws is stemming from this fear, this intense underlying resentment, because not feeling loved will absolutely create resentment, because there's no way that you can ever really be convinced or convince anyone that they don't deserve love. And so when you feel unloved, you're going to feel resentment at the same time, because it's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous state of being, a mind state, and a interaction with the world. And I'm sorry, but the way that we live our modern society just creates more of this feeling. We aren't moving away from this sense of isolation and kind of this torturous suffering. We're actually moving into it, not away from it. It seems like the further along we get in this cycle, that further we get into this sense of it's gone beyond longing, it's gone beyond desiring. It's a really existential crisis of what is the point? If there isn't love, what is the point? And that is the really loud ringing that I hear in the collective. And it is so distorted. It is such a distorted, twisted way of interacting with reality. And all of the people who feel that way are constantly shamed for feeling it. I am shamed because I can sense it, where the fact that you can sense it is, well, what is missing in you that causes you to feel that everybody doesn't love you? Because that's the world we're living in. The world we're living in is not one of love, it's one of competition and pointing fingers. And knowing that does not mean that I have something wrong inside of me. So here's where non-duality can really fuck up your brain, right? It just really gets to the point where you can't see reality accurately anymore, because it's more than just a sense of separation from others that causes this deep this sense of not feeling loved. When you know that God is here and God is everywhere and you are not separate from God, it's great and it's beautiful. Now you've resolved that fundamental seeking, that fundamental craving of needing to be at one with your divinity, and knowing that there isn't some set of rituals or some prayers that must be recited, or some level of belief and perfection that you have to get to in order to reclaim your divinity. Having that resolved is beautiful. It's a beautiful, blissful, transcendent state of being. But then when you return to the real world that you're integrated with from these bodies, and people still treat you like shit, because they will, in order to maintain some level of awareness of that, you're almost feeling rejected again by their rejection of their divinity, them not seeing the change in you that's happened in your connection to the all godliness of everything. It makes you feel like God is rejecting you again, and it will put you back into the cycle of abandonment. And that twisty wheel, that loop-de-loop that people keep going on, it's almost like, geez, maybe you were better off being asleep. You have to actively go out and love the world, purposefully. It isn't enough to accept that God is everywhere. You have to be God for other people. And if you aren't willing to do that, then you have to understand the part you are playing in their existential crisis, because they might not have even gotten that far yet. So I hear a lot of people bashing religion, but one thing I got out of religion when I was in that world was that God loved me. So I didn't really feel loved entirely by my family. There was a whole lot of dysfunction. I didn't feel loved in the school system, in the education system, because I wasn't the smartest kid in the class. I was clever, but I wasn't the most clever, and only the most clever got the real good praises at school. I think my first grade teacher told me that when I grew up. She did this thing at the end of the year, which is just psychotic that anybody would do this. But she lined us all up and told each one of us what we were going to be when we grew up. And don't do this to children. This is just, it's cruel, man. It's a cruel thing to do, for real. And I think what she told me I was going to be was a secretary. And just so happened to be the case that my mom was a secretary, so that's probably where she came up with the idea. But putting something like that into an undeveloped mind changes for them the projection of where they could get to, unless they have the kind of personality that doesn't want to be, feeding other people's good feelings. So I don't want to disappoint my teacher. Somewhere in the back of my head, I might get some love if I do what other people want. We all walk around with this feeling of, what exactly do I need to do to get that feeling of complete love, complete unconditional love? And we're all walking around with these wounds in our souls from all the things we heard as a kid that really made no sense, because we are living in a system right now that does not support the life-sustaining energy of love. You can't have that at the same time that you have competition. You cannot be literally taking lives as if they don't matter, shutting down parts of your brain that are aware of that so that you don't feel bad, accelerating in your own life at the same time that others are losing theirs. It's not possible. It creates this delusion because it's not safe. Where is it safe? Nobody's safe. There's no safety. And so people don't feel loved. And they go hand in hand, completely hand in hand. And getting to a point of non-duality, getting to a point of acceptance about consciousness and the fact that we are able to create and call in new states of being and new futures where this isn't the case. We have to literally be much more active in creating spaces for each other which aren't competitive, which are simply celebrating. We've taken every good thing that there is about being human and we commodified it, attempting to capitalize on everything. And where does that end? So even the tiny little joys that you can get from just simply expressing yourself now have become something that we capitalize on. We attempt to gain something from. And that act of needing to do that, needing to prove, needing to compete, having the literal likes or dislikes show up on each little thing we do, is further away from love. And we need to get to a point where it's like, oh, this really hurts, and we need to turn back now and go a different direction. I don't see how it's going to get better until people are actually doing that, because what it looks like is happening is a whole lot of cementing of service to nobody but the little body and the little self, with the words and the verbiage of enlightenment, but not the actual experience of it. Even those on the path will find others to help. The Sangha. Where is our Sangha? You do not charge people $5,000 to come be part of your Sangha. That's ridiculous. But we haven't figured out yet how to create other forms of Sangha. So everything is around these roles and these rituals that are part of a society which is keeping us competitive with each other. And we need to somehow figure out how to break that spell so that we can love each other actively again. Truly, like fully, like accepting each other. And I don't know how things get better until we are literally doing that instead of just speaking it. So that's my rant for today. I'm sorry. That's how I feel. I just feel it so loud, and I don't know how to solve that problem, because I think it's well beyond this sense of loneliness and isolation, and it gets to this core, like, you have to heal yourself and you have to give yourself the unconditional love, but it's hard to like be fully released and relieved of that when you are still interacting with so many people who don't love you. And the fact of the matter is that a lot of the people we deal with on a daily basis have no concept of love whatsoever, and they don't love you. And that's just the truth. And then we're just like going around trying to lie to each other and like, oh yes, love, kindness, when nothing is actually reflecting that. It's maddening. I hope we can reflect true love to each other more, and real consideration of the difficult nature it is to actually be a human being on earth right now. Thanks for listening.